Hello everyone, welcome back. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books. Today I've read another memoir. So this is Tom Felton's Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard. So that is the front cover. This book had I wasn't aware of it until it was recommended to me, and it's just like, I need to read that. So you learn about Tom's life as a child actor, getting cast as Malfoy, and then how that affected him growing up. You see a lot of tidbits about his family, about the people he looked up to on set, and what happened to him after Harry Potter. And there's so much that I just didn't know, and I want to give him a big hug. But yeah, it's just hearing all the stories about him growing up on film sets and things. I think that's quite fascinating to read about with child actors, seeing how the business affected them, because I think we can all say that the industry does seem quite toxic, not just for adults, but for children as well, especially in the wake of looking at things like how kids grew up on Nickelodeon and things, with that documentary series coming out. And so it was quite interesting to read and see how supported he was, and it sounded like he did actually have quite a happy time growing up on set. Yeah, so I'll just read the little blurb for it. They called for a break and Gambon magicked up a cigarette from out of his beard. He and I were often found outside the stage door having a breath of fresh air, as we referred to it. There would be painters and plasterers and chippies and sparks, and among them all would be me and Dumbledore having a crafty cigarette. From Burrower to wizard, Tom Felton's adolescence was anything but ordinary. His early rise to fame saw him catapulted into the limelight aged just 12 when he landed the iconic role of Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter films. Speaking with candour and his own trademark humour, Tom shares his experience of growing up on screen and as part of the wizarding world for the very first time. He tells us all about his big break, what filming was really like, and the lasting friendships he made during 10 years as part of the franchise, as well as the highs and lows of fame and the reality of navigating adult life after filming finished. 304 pages in non-fiction, autobiography, memoirs, and celebrity. I really enjoyed reading this and finding out about Tom's life growing up. He talks about his brothers, he talks about the fact that there came a point when one of his brothers actually ended up being his, companion? Because when you're on set, kids have to have an adult with them pretty much at all times, and there was a point when his brother became that for him, and having his brother was kind of like the best and the worst decision at the same time. Other adults would have been like timing to the second how long they were on set for, because they weren't allowed to do more than 3 hours at a time, I think it was. His brother didn't really care. He talks about how young he was when he started smoking and how he would sneak off for a cigarette with Michael Gambon, of all people, how the friendships were made with obviously like the three of the core cast of Harry Potter, talking about Emma Watson, Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint. And there's a really lovely foreword at the beginning of the book from Emma Watson, who they have such a great friendship, and I loved reading about that friendship. It was so sweet. As somebody who grew up with the books, who grew up with the films, and I think these days anybody can grow up with them. I was like 8 years old, I think, when the first book came out, and so I think I was probably 10 when I started reading them, because my mum actually said to me that it was somebody from work who told her about the books, and knowing how much I loved reading, she was just like, oh, maybe Debs will enjoy that. Sparking off a life long love of the Harry Potter world. Shame about the author. Generally, I find behind the scenes things fascinating anyway, so seeing it from somebody like Tom, who was playing like the baddie, but not because he was kind of like the first baddie that we were introduced to, but then as the films go on, you realise that he is the result of his family, of his father, and his influences, and you see what Tom was thinking as he went through, and how it was his grandfather that taught him the Draco sneer, because he talks about how for the first few films he was just like sneering in the background, and he talks about the friendships that he had with the actors playing Crabbe and Goyle, and how, because in the beginning obviously they did socialise with each other, but they had their gangs almost because of how much they were filming with each other, and because Tom was working so much with that trio of Draco, Crabbe and Goyle, and with the other three it was very much Ron, Hermione and Harry. There was almost a bit of a split there. They still were friends, but because of the circles that they hung around in and how they filmed. He just obviously gravitated more towards the people that he worked with the most, and yeah, he just tells some wonderful stories about filming on the Harry Potter films and how he really didn't appreciate the people he was working with at the time. Because I think when you were a kid, being on a set with Maggie Smith, Julie Walters, he already knew Mark Williams when he did The Borrowers, but yeah, he said all these people that nowadays he's just like, I can't believe that I did that. But at the time he did, he wasn't really aware of how big a deal it actually was, and now he can look back on those memories. He tells a really, really funny story about Alan Rickman, because I think the general consensus from the kids who worked on the films is that Alan did have quite a dark sense of humour, that he was always very respectful, but there was also moments of like fear because he was Snape. And there's one story where he talks about that we're filming in the dark forest, it was a night shoot, and he decided to strike up a conversation with Alan Rickman, and he was just like, oh, hi Alan, so how are you doing, how are you feeling? And there's like 10 seconds of silence, and Tom was just there thinking, oh, did he hear me? Should I ask again? Should I just leave it? And very slowly Alan looked at him and said, I've reached my peak. And then did like a small smile, and that was when Tom's relationship with Alan kind of changed a bit. But he does also talk about Alan Rickman looking at his director's chair, because when you're on sets, the actors have their own director's chair, you know, the really big, tall, foldable chairs that have like the character names on the back. And as Tom grew up, I think probably all of the main actors probably still had ones from when they were younger, but Alan saw Tom in his small, foldable one and went over to the director and actually said, he needs a bigger chair. He needs a chair like the rest of us. And Tom was just there in the corner going, I'm fine. And he was just like, no, you're one of us. You need the proper chair. And so Alan stood up for him. And I just thought, it's so wonderful hearing these stories about people that I know I look up to and looked up to, and hearing the stories that he shares of people who have now passed away and how he has those memories for life. And he has those wonderful stories that he can keep. But then you also see the sad side of things, where after Harry Potter, it wasn't as easy for him as he thought it was going to be, because he went from being in this job for like 10 years to then having to essentially start again and move out to LA and do pilot season. And how from there he kind of fell into alcohol, and how he was kind of in denial about how much he was relying on alcohol. And he talks about how his girlfriend at the time was so supportive of him and how that relationship shaped him. It was a wonderful read, it was a sad read. There were points when I really just want to reach through the pages of the book and just give him a big hug and tell past Tom that everything was going to be okay. This is a book that it can break your heart a little bit, knowing what happened to him after Harry Potter and the lows that he got to, and when he did end up in rehab, and just how in complete denial he was. And the night of the Three Kings, as he calls it, where he escaped essentially from his rehab and tried to walk from Malibu to downtown LA. It's just like, what? It would have been half an hour drive-ish, but it was downtown LA, so it's probably a bit further. But it does say that on a good day, you can actually drive in like half an hour from LA to Malibu. But obviously I'm not completely sure the specifics of where in LA he was and where in Malibu he was. But yeah, he actually attempted to walk from Malibu to LA when he was in complete denial about being in rehab. And the Three Kings, as he referred to them as, who helped him that night as he was trying to make his way back to LA. I just want to hug him. I just want to give him a big mama bear hug and say, you did good, baby. You had a rough patch and you've come out the other side. And yeah, oh, he's 36. So he's like the same age as my sister. He's going to be 37 this year. And I'm 35, I'm going to be 36 my next birthday. So we're similar ages. But he is actually older than me. But I still feel like I could give him a big mama bear auntie hug. Yeah, I really enjoy this, hearing his voice, hearing the stories of him being on set, him growing up as a child actor, because you kind of forget about the stuff that he did before. Admittedly, it's been a very, very long time since I've seen The Borrowers, but when I moved up to Yorkshire, we actually did the Granada Studios tour, which had The Borrowers set there. We saw the Coronation Street set, back when it was at Granada, we saw the Burrows set, and Sooty and Sweep were there. I remember that. I was quite young. I must have been like 8 or 9 when that happened. I remember that and being completely in awe of the massive sets that made you feel like a borrower. And yeah, I just thought this was an incredible insight into his life within and beyond Harry Potter. And yeah, I just wish him all the best in life because I think he's wonderful. Tom Felton, Beyond the Wand. There you go. If you're a Harry Potter fan like me, I think you'll get some wonderful you'll hear wonderful stories about that life, but then you also just get to know Tom, and I just thought it was great and funny and heartwarming and heartbreaking, and as I said, when it finished, I just wanted to give him a great big hug. So yeah, Tom Felton, Beyond the Wand, the magic and mayhem of growing up a wizard. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time, and to treat my very sore throat because I think I overdid it singing and shouting at the Mamma Mia party last week. I have got some lemon ginger and mocha honey tea with also an added dollop of honey from my Uncle Paul's hive that he has. So he has his own label and everything, and it's really nice honey. Thank you, Uncle Paul, for being a beekeeper, because basically honey is my life as a singer. So thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!